Welcome back, football fans, to another episode of the Prediction Show. In this one, I am giving you all your wish. I've seen many comments in recent weeks asking me to cover Liga 1, La Liga, the Bundesliga, which returns this weekend. I am granting you that wish because in this episode, we are not just covering the Premier League, we are going to cover all interesting games that come across my desk whilst I do my research for the weekend. So get comfy, strap yourself in, and without further ado, let's take a look at some of the most interesting games being played this weekend. And yes, I need a haircut, but getting this video up and out is more important. Let's go. So we're going to start with Liga 1 in France, and if you do appreciate this new format where we jump around the different leagues looking at interesting games, we've got a very interesting team that's just come up to La Liga in the next section. If you're not interested, you can check the timestamps and skip to the Premier League section, for example, where I will predict every single game that's being played in Gameweek 2. But for now, let's crack on. We're also going to cover the Bundesliga, as I mentioned in the intro. But first, let's look at the game that I'm on for Liga 1. So it is champions PSG away at Lille, and I'm just going to open here with the odds because 1.79, we'll call it 1.8 with 1xbet is the peak, and I think that actually shows the quality of Lille. They have lost Bouadi, who did not play the opening game, which I believe Lille won 2-0. They were away from home, and this is going to be a much more difficult game, no doubt about that. But we can see here, PSG drew the opening game 2-2. They were 2-0 down at half-time, and Ferran Torres came on and got a brace on his debut to rescue a point, really. And PSG could have a bit of a slow start to the season, given the amount of players that they had at the World Cup, certainly compared to some of the other teams in France. But what's interesting about this game is the head-to-head. If we look at the last 10 games here, we can see there has not been a single victory for Lille. And also, BTTS has landed in 9 of the last 10 games. The only game that didn't end with BTTS landing was that most recent game, which PSG won 3-0. In fact, BTTS or over 2.5 goals has landed in the vast majority of recent games between these two. The last meeting that didn't was the Super Cup, which Lille won. And across those last 10 meetings, 4.4 goals on average. So we could be in for a pretty tasty fixture. This one is being played on Friday. That's why I've covered it first. If you're watching this when the video goes out on Friday morning, this one is tonight. If you're watching it on Saturday, have a look, see how this did. What was the score? I predict we will see goals in this one. And let me show you why I think that. If we look at all competitions and we toggle to look at goals conceded, we can see that PSG have conceded in each of the last 5 competitive games, which is not very PSG-like. And as I mentioned, they may start the season slow. So my thinking for this is actually over 2.5 goals, which you can get at 1.81. The reason I'm going with over 2.5 goals is because actually it is better than BTTS. The odds for BTTS are 1.7, but you can see the consensus there is 1.67, which to me suggests that the bookmakers believe there will be at least 2 goals in this game, one for either side. Can PSG then go on and get a winner? I believe they can. And with that said, if you are confident in that, you can see here 3.4 with Bet365 for PSG to win and concede. So let me know what you think about that one in the comments. On this episode of the Prediction Show, every comment is automatically entered into a draw to win OddAlerts Pro, which includes many features, some of which you will see in this episode a little later. Let me know your predictions in the comments. Next up, La Liga, and we are checking out Racing Santander. This is also a Friday game, so we'll cover this one and then we'll move on to Saturday and take a look at the Premier League and the EFL, see who's started well there. Maybe some tired legs after the Carabao Cup games as well this weekend. That is also something to note and to check out as part of your research. But Racing Santander, what stuck out to me when I was looking at some of my research tools on OddAlerts is the second half goals that they do score. We're looking at the last 25 games here. They've scored 0.8 goals compared to 1.4 in the second half. And if we do look at their home form, they started this season with a 2-2 draw against Villarreal. That's not a bad result at all. Elche were battered 5-0 in the previous game at home to Barcelona. They opened with a draw against Deportivo La Coruña, and Racing also, like Deportivo, coming up from Segunda. Racing were actually champions, and we can see that their home form is pretty good. They ended the season scoring bucket loads of goals indeed. 4-3, 5-4, 4-4. And then they've opened their La Liga account with 2 against Villarreal. That could have been a tricky game for them. The bookmakers do have them at 2.21. That is the peak, which is a value bet compared to our model. We give them a 48% chance of winning this game. I like them to score in the second half, which is 1.61. And if we look at the BTTS record for Elche as well, and of course, small sample size, but looking back into last season, a lot of their games really did end with BTTS landing. Have they patched that defence? Doesn't look like it so far this season. But of course, the green, as we are looking at the BTTS drop-down, the green means that BTTS landed, and we can see a lot of games did land last year for Elche. And Racing Santander at home, similar story. They score a lot of goals, but they also concede 1 or 2. Now, I've got a prediction in mind, but let's just take a look at OddAlerts AI, get another opinion. We can get a match preview from OddAlerts AI, and we can just scan through this here. It says Racing Santander have been prolific at home, scoring 2.7 per game. Now we have the trends section. Late goals, Racing scoring after 70 minutes in 60% of games. Elche seeing goals in 70% of games after 70 minutes. So second half goals could be the play here. BTTS, yes, is a trend, as we've already seen for ourselves. The home win, 2.6 points per game at home versus 1.6 away for Elche. Cards also mentioned, which is interesting because this market is available on Bet365 at the time of recording. The key stats section echoes and reaffirms the BTTS percentages that we have looked at, and also cards again getting a mention. The verdict from OddAlerts AI here: the match is likely to be high scoring, with both sides finding the net, especially after the 70th minute. The home side should prevail. What do you think is going to happen in this game? Just checking out the card data for the last 25 games, and we can see the opponents of Racing booked 3 times, and also 2.19 is not a bad average there as well for Racing Santander. We can actually see the occurrences here. So Racing have received a card in 84% of those recent games. Their opponents have been booked in 96%. So of course they are coming up to La Liga. You've got to keep that in mind, but they have got some tricky players. Will that continue in this game? So for this game, I am going to go with Racing to score in the second half, both teams to score and both teams to receive a card. That is at 2.55. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments. Next up, we're going to check out the Premier League and give some predictions after looking at the form guide. Now then, to the football form guide and the Premier League, we're going to take a quick look at some data points which will lead into predictions, and then we are going to predict every single game that's being played this weekend. Manchester United, we can see here 101 shots taken in the last 6 competitive games. Now, what we can do in this new season with the football form guide is click on the chart icon, and then you can actually see here shots for, and you can get a breakdown and see where that data is coming from, so where that figure is coming from. And we can see they had 21 shots at Hull City. How many will they have at home against Ipswich Town? I think that will be a difficult game, and I think it's a great game for BTTS because I really liked what I saw against Sunderland from Ipswich. The way they countered was brilliant, and I think that is actually where Manchester United look most vulnerable, those quick counter attacks, especially down the flanks. So that could be a very interesting game indeed. Now we're taking a look at the first half preset, and we can see here total goals in the first half. Aston Villa 12. Now that number has been bumped up because they were dismantled by Brighton. I think Aston Villa have dismantled their own team in the transfer market, if I'm being completely honest. 12 first half goals in the last 6 games. In terms of winning by halftime, Arsenal are top of the pile. They get the job done. Manchester United in 4 of their last 6, but of course they were losing at halftime against Hull City. Now on to XG before we take a look at the games being played this weekend and make some predictions. Manchester United are top for XG. Brighton very close as well. Everton are in the top 6, and that is because a certain game against Preston is being included. I'm sure that they bumped up their numbers with that game. Newcastle are up there as well. Interesting. They played Tottenham, who got a convincing win in the Carabao Cup against Charlton. That should be a very open game indeed. So before I give you predictions for every Premier League game, here are a couple of selections that I'm on for this weekend in the Premier League. Let me know what you think about these in the comments. Of course, some of the data we've just seen. Manchester United against Ipswich, I am going to go BTTS, and I'm also going to put onto that Manchester United to have over 15.5 shots. So over 15 shots at 2.5. I think this could be a very open game. I like what I saw from Ipswich in the opening weekend. They will break on you. They will try and play as well. They've got some good players, certainly at the top end of the pitch, and I think they will try and use that Hull City performance from the opening weekend as a blueprint. And I said it. You can go back and watch my preview video of the season. I really don't rate the Manchester United defence all that much. I think De Ligt is very injury prone. He's not reliable. Maguire is ageing. He's okay, but he's not the most agile player. You've got players like Dalot, who never really convinced me, and Luke Shaw, same story as Maguire really. They're actively looking for a Luke Shaw replacement. So I think they will concede plenty of goals this season, Manchester United, especially as they start to play their European games as well. So 2.5 for this one. Let me know what you're on in the comments. So here are your Premier League fixtures for the weekend. We've got a Friday night kickoff and also a Monday night game once more, and a 12:30 game. It's all happening in these early weeks. I'm going to fly through, give some thoughts on the opening weekend and whatnot, and then give some correct score predictions as well for each game. So first up, Crystal Palace against Manchester City. I think this is a big game for both teams. I just think that Crystal Palace look a little bit flat at the moment. There's some pretty bad things coming out of the dressing room there. Ismail Assar not training. Mateta trying to force a move away. Similar sort of thing to, Watkins at Aston Villa. You just don't need this at the start of a season. And for Manchester City, I think they could struggle if they do not fix the midfield. They do not fix the system. I think Maresca was trying to be too smart in the previous game. I would expect Shirky to be in and the main man now. I think Foden was pretty ineffective in the opening game. I'm going to go with a Manchester City 2-0 victory in this one. I worry for Crystal Palace, I really do. Liverpool against Nottingham Forest, the lunchtime kickoff. I can see Liverpool winning this game quite comfortably, if I'm being honest. Nottingham Forest will go there under Glasner now, of course, and try and make it difficult and play on the break, as he likes to do in these types of games. But I think Liverpool will put down a marker in this one. They'll maybe bring out Barcola to the crowd, and I think they'll try and put on a show, and Iraola will be desperate to, of course, show what he's about in this first game. I think they did improve in the second half. They just had a bad day at the office at Newcastle, and Newcastle, first home game of the season, as I said in the preview show for the opening game of the Premier League last weekend, that was always going to be a difficult game. Newcastle away on the opening weekend. I'm going to go with a 3-0 Liverpool victory in this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Coventry against Hull City. Again, big game. I know it's only game week 2, but you don't want to go, if you're Coventry, you don't want to go another week without a goal or a point, especially against Hull City. But Hull City will be flying after that first game and that first victory against Manchester United. I think Manchester United, much like Liverpool, they had an off day. And for Coventry, away at Arsenal, it's very tough to gauge where they're at. I'm sure if Hull City played away at Arsenal on the opening day, it would have been a similar score. I think this one could be an open game, much like the Sunderland-Ipswich game last weekend. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw here. Let me know what you think in the comments. AFC Bournemouth against Everton. We've seen some cracking games between these two historically. Some late goals, some brilliant goals. Everton have looked okay this season. I like what they're doing. I like the new signings that they've made. Barry looks good. He scored a hat-trick against Preston as well. 4 goals in a week for him. But Bournemouth, yeah, they've got some great talent, and you would expect them to score in the majority of their games. I think they're going to get off the mark this weekend with a victory against Everton. I'm going to go with a 2-0 victory for Bournemouth. The Saturday night game is going to be a cracker, no doubt about that. Tottenham, who sit 18th, which is a little bit worse than last season, but not by much. They've had some more new signings. Savio and Marmoush are in. They've got a pretty good team, and that's why it was quite surprising that they did lose 3-0 at Brentford. But, I mean, Brentford, wow, what a performance that was. This game will have goals. I really like what I saw from Newcastle, and they've signed Nico Gonzalez from Manchester City, which I think could turn out to be a fantastic signing. I'm going to go with a 3-1 victory for Tottenham in this game. I had to think about that for a second there, but if we're looking at both teams and their defence, I know they conceded 3 in the previous game, but I just think Tottenham actually do have the better defence at this moment in time. I think the Newcastle defence is still gelling together. They've got a couple of injuries as well. So Tottenham to win this one 3-1. And I'm going to go with a debut goal for Savio. Sunderland against Fulham. I think Chelsea were the better team by far against Fulham. I think the goals that Fulham scored were mainly thanks to Chelsea's individual errors, if we're being honest. Fulham looked okay, but they didn't really assert themselves on the game, I didn't think. And Sunderland, in their first home game, they were so good at home last season. I think they're going to win this one 1-0. Leeds against Brentford is another Sunday game. I like the under for this one, given the defensive capabilities of both these teams, especially Leeds now with the signings that they've made. James Trafford, a great signing, and the 2 centre-backs that they've signed as well from Europe. Brentford started the season so well. They played in the Carabao Cup, as have Leeds. Both got victories. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw here. Chelsea against their feeder club Brighton, and there's been some interesting matchups between these two in the last few seasons. But Chelsea, for me, when I watch them, I think they can score 3 or 4 goals in every single game, but I do think they will concede as well. So I'm going to go with a 4-2 victory for Chelsea. And well done if you were on Chelsea and BTTS from the previous video, by the way. Manchester United against Ipswich Town, I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory for Manchester United. I think they will win it late on in what is the late game on Sunday. And then Monday, we have Aston Villa against Arsenal, and I'm going to go with more misery for Aston Villa, but I think they will have looked to solidify and stop the leakage, the embarrassment, the rot in their defence. Their keeper's gone, Konsa's gone, Tielemans is gone, Rodgers is gone, Watkins is on his way out, Lucadinha's gone. It's crazy, really. And if I was Emery, I would have walked a couple of weeks ago. Arsenal may give a debut to Konsa in this game. Who knows? I think Arsenal will win this one 2-0. I think it'll be very, very comfortable. I'm not sure who Aston Villa will have up top. Nicholas Jackson apparently is signing for them. They're letting Ollie Watkins go, it looks like. Very, very surprising summer, I think, for Aston Villa. Very shocking summer for Aston Villa fans, it must be. So they were my Premier League predictions. Now we're going to check out the player props tool, because I've made some updates which is going to make it even easier to spot good player prop bets for the weekend, and we are going to put together a selection for the Premier League weekend. Let's go. So this is the player props tool, link in the description. We are looking at the competition mode. We've selected the Premier League, and the form window that we're looking at is the last 10 games. And I'm going to show you a new tab that we have here within the selection of stats. You can look at the totals, you can look at the per games and the per 90-minute metrics, or you can just look at the prop occurrences. So let's say, for example, we want to take a look at fouls. Let's have a look at over 1.5 fouls. And we can see Joe Linton, of course, he might be injured at the minute, but he does hit it. In his last 10 appearances, he has committed 2 or more fouls in 80% of games. We can keep scrolling down. We see João Gomez, who got sent off on his debut. Figures. Szoboszlai here. We can click on the profile now. I just wanted to show you this. This is another new feature. You can click on the profile and see a breakdown of where those fouls were committed and who against. We can look at over 0.5 fouls and it just updates very quickly. You can look at tackles, assists, goals, shots on target, fouls drawn, which is fouls won, and total shots as well. So we had 3 shots against Newcastle. For fouls, I actually quite like the look of this for Szoboszlai. What do you think? I'm going to check out this tool a little bit more and then I'm going to put something together, but feel free to check this out. I just wanted to show you quickly the new updates to the player props tool for the new season. So another player that I've just checked out here, and you'll see why I'm showing you this in a moment. Over 1.5 shots for Oli McBurnie in quite a few of his games. He's had at least 1 shot in the majority of his games recently. He is such a focal point. He's a very good player as well, as we saw in that opening game. Over 1.5 shots. I'm actually going to go with him to have a shot on target, which, as you can see, just 1 of the last 10 he failed. Now, of course, he's in the Premier League, but they are playing against Coventry, who did look quite open, albeit against Arsenal in that opening game. So this is what I'm on for that game. Szoboszlai to commit more than 1 foul against Nottingham Forest. Will they be put under pressure? It's 2.37, that one. So that is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And then Oli McBurnie to have a shot on target at 1.53. That is a 3.64 double for the Premier League weekend. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments. Now, the final section of this episode, it's been a long one. I didn't intend for it to be a long one. Let me know how you feel about the format, covering different leagues and, you know, covering the player props tool and stuff like that. We're going to look at BTTS here, and we are going to look across the next 7 days, filtering using quick filters for BTTS games, and we are then going to rank all of the games by our BTTS model across major leagues. So we do have some more games from France, and we do have games now from the Bundesliga. I knew that a game from the Bundesliga would pop up here, and we've got Elversberg, who have been promoted, against Leverkusen, and BTTS is being touted here, and I imagine it's not even that much of a value bet. I thought it would be, given that this is their first Bundesliga game. As we can see here, they've come up from the Bundesliga 2, but at home they are a good goal-scoring team. They're playing against Leverkusen though, so Leverkusen to win and maybe over 2.5 goals if you want to avoid BTTS, but BTTS, that is the second highest game for the weekend when looking at all major leagues, and that includes the EFL as well. Monaco against Marseille is the top rated game for BTTS, and the odds 1.50. The bookies clearly agree. Maybe you could put together a double or a treble using these games, or you can do what OddAlerts was built for in the first place. It does a lot more than that now, but you can set alerts on those games as well. So let me know when those odds hit evens, maybe after 15-20 minutes, and then there could be a couple of goals in quick succession. Of course, another game from France here, Strasbourg against Lens, BTTS 62%. Now what you can do here as well, this is a new feature for this season. I'll just show you this quickly before we head off. We can set the odds for BTTS here, and you can say only show me odds that are 1.8 or higher, and then we can actually click on this to enable value bets only. We can save the rule, we can hit search, and it's going to come back with games that are now value plays always ranked as we selected. So Arsenal against Villa. Can Arsenal concede? Can Villa score their first goal of the season? It would be a surprise, let's be honest, given the state of Aston Villa, but it is a value bet. Dortmund against Hamburger as well. BTTS value bet. Bolton against Lincoln. Another value bet. Lincoln City expected to go down. They started the season pretty well. They've been unbeaten for so long. They scored away at Middlesbrough, didn't they? But then still lost the game. BTTS has landed in both of their games so far, and even in every game they've played this season. That includes another couple of games in the Carabao Cup. So BTTS here against Bolton is actually a pretty decent play, I think. Let's take a look at the odds. The odds are 1.8 with Bet365. So if you were thinking of putting a double together or something, that would be a pretty good foundation for BTTS. So that is how you can use quick filters to find games. BTTS for Manchester United against Ipswich. As we can see, there is a value play. So that was Quick Filters, and that was a European episode with a bit of Premier League sprinkled in there. Let me know what you thought about this new format. Have a great weekend, everybody. Can't wait to read your predictions as well in the comments.